We're here again, another week, another 30-minute pitch. I am your host, Austin Robillard, here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network YouTube channel. And I just want to bring you a friendly reminder before we get into all of the soccer talk. We're going to be talking Champions League. We're going to be talking Inter Miami today. As you can see there, we are brought to you by, the show is presented by Dangerous Minds Brewing Company, an outstanding place located in Pompano Beach at the city center. Unbelievable stuff they have there. I can't say it enough. They brew all of those beers that they have in-house, tons of beers on tap that they're always rotating. They also have great food too. If you're not just looking for beer and you're looking for a place to eat every now and then, I would definitely check out Dangerous Minds. They've got great food in terms of pizza. If you're an individual pizza kind of person, absolutely go check out Dangerous Minds. They always have different specials. They always have different toppings for your pizzas. They do a great job, and I know for sure that they make the dough in house, which is so crispy, thin crust, small individual pizzas. Great appetizers as well. If you guys want to check out Dangerous Minds, you absolutely should. They are the ones that are making this show possible for you. As you can see there, I mean, they do some fantastic stuff, and I promise you, it is worth everything that you pay for. They do a great job. The service is great. The food is great. The atmosphere is great. And if you're looking for a place to watch soccer, whether it's Champions League, whether it's Premier League, whether it's any league around the world, they will do their best to have it on for you. I'm sure they even, will play some of the early Premier League games if they need to, because both the owners are pretty big into the football scene themselves. That's why they're here making this show possible. So make sure, if you can, go check out Dangerous Minds, a great place located at the Pompano City Center in North Broward. Great people, great atmosphere, great food, and great beer, of course. And they're the ones making this one possible. So with that said, let's get right into the show, and we're going to start off with a little bit of Champions League talk. We had a ton of games that wrapped up last night, or I guess yesterday afternoon, depending on your time zone. Um, I This is obviously the greatest competition, maybe in sports other than the World Cup for me personally. I don't know how anybody else feels about that, but this is something that's really special. And we had a lot of games, a lot of maybe surprises, a lot of shocks, and a lot of late drama, especially if you're like me and a Manchester United fan. But we'll get into that. I kind of want to do a quick roundup here and start and look at the groups. Starting in Group A, what they liked to call the group of death, the group that should have been but isn't. Messi versus Ronaldo, PSG, Man City, Club Brugge, and RB Leipzig. Now, a lot of people expected PSG and Man City to run away at the top of the group, but I did not expect to see RB Leipzig in fourth place, losing 3 games from 3. That is something that has surprised me thus far, and is a little shocking to say the least. Now, Paris Saint-Germain got off pretty, it was close against Leipzig. Mbappe started off the scoring, if I am remembering correctly, and then they ended up going down 2-1. Leipzig had a couple of goals there, one run before the break, one right after the break. Mike, and then it turns around in the second half for him when Messi decides to score the second and the third goal, the third coming via penalty. And they end up winning the match 3-2, and that should have been 4-2, but Mbappe missed a penalty late there. I'm surprised that Messi gave that one up, but it is what it is. Could have had the hat trick, but yeah, I think there was a mistake from Tyler Adams in this match, and it was quite a rough one for RB Leipzig. It would have been good to take away points from this match after their rough start. And if I'm looking at the other game here, Man City versus Club Brugge, there wasn't really a matchup there. It was quite the wash, I will say. Wasn't much to talk about. They kind of ran away with it. And like I said, it's just as you expect. It is as you expect from a strong Man City side going against a Club Brugge, who actually have done well to keep themselves in third place. And if they go to the Europa League, they will make some noise. But that's the Group A roundup. It's looking like Man City and PSG are going to walk away with this group quite easily. Another group that was talked about a lot is Group B. Liverpool, Atletico Madrid, AC Milan, and FC Porto, who were a shock last year. Do not sleep on FC Porto, by the way. There were a couple of really good matches. The Liverpool Atletico Madrid match was really fun watch. Really good stuff there. I don't know what it is about this Liverpool Atletico matchup in Champions League, but it's always bringing some kind of heat. Griezmann ended up getting some kind of red card against Bobby Firmino there in the second half. But 4 quick goals in the first half, and then finally Salah gets a penalty later on that makes this game 3-2, and that's how the game ended. So Liverpool now have 9 points from their first 3 games, which is really good for them in this group, given the competition. They had a crazy 5-1 win over Porto. They beat Milan as well. And I'm looking at Milan, who finally got into the Champions League after a long, long drought, and they are not living up to what they should be doing. They did have a couple of departures in the offseason. They have some young talent who's still trying to, get to the level that they need to be for Champions League football, but it's not looking good for AC Milan. And I think that a lot of people are sleeping on this FC Porto team. I think Porto has always, for what they are, for the team they are playing in the Portuguese league, and being one of the biggest clubs in Portugal, of course, but it's not one of the teams that you say, oh, our favorites every year, whatever. But when you look at last year and what they did to Juve, I remember the Sergio Oliveira game where he scored twice in the second leg. They ended up beating Juve in the knockouts on away goals. And now it's looking like they're going to be able to challenge for another knockout spot in a group that has 3 European giants in Liverpool, Atletico Madrid, and AC Milan. So don't sleep on FC Porto. I think that they are a really good side, and they're going to test as many teams as they possibly can if they are to go on to the knockouts. Moving on to Group C, we've got Ajax, Dortmund. Then we've got Sporting and Besiktas. Besiktas have not had the start that they would have wanted if they wanted to at least test for third place to get into Europa League. But Ajax and Dortmund seem to be running away with this group. Ajax had a phenomenal win over Dortmund. It was a really good performance. Dortmund could not find the back of the net. But it looks like both of those teams, they'll play once more. A lot of these games are going back to back just by how the matches work. But it looks like Ajax and Dortmund are going to run away with this group. Not much to be said, but what should be said is Ajax's goal differential I'm seeing here, 11 goals for, only 1 goal against, a 10-plus goal differential in 3 games in Champions League group stage action is nothing to shy away from. That is something that you look at, and you look at a strong side. And maybe it's not the Ajax team of a couple of years ago that featured Frankie de Jong and Matthias de Ligt, but Ajax still have some pretty good talent, and they should not be slept on. So look for Ajax in the knockouts. If they get a favorable draw, they could make some noise like they did a couple of years ago. Moving on to Group D. Now this is the one that I'm always going to look at and say, I'm shocked. And I see Manny coming in here now. I'm shocked. Last year it was Borussia Mönchengladbach, right? And now it's this team from Moldova, FC Sheriff, a country that's not even recognized. FC Sheriff have come in here and they're sitting at the top of the group. Manny, why is that?
Because it's how you start, and it's not how you start, it's how you finish. That's what I meant to say. Thanks to Inter Miami, which I'm still trying to wake up from last night's match. Listen, it's a feel-great story, right? I mean, this kind of feels like when you're playing the NCAA tournament, there's that one Cinderella team that surprises you. It's definitely them. However, though, I think Inter actually knocked them into a little bit of a wake-up call last game. And I think, listen, let's be honest here. Real Madrid had over 30 shots that game. They just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. And Sheriff, they did what most teams do against Real Madrid. They counter and they score. And it's like, wow, why is everybody so shocked? Sheriff's not going to beat you by out possession. Sheriff's not going to beat you by, tackling you guys or anything. They're basically going to capitalize on what you do wrong, on your mistakes. And I think that's what they've done in the first 2 games, which got them that opportunities to win points, which is great. But I think at some point, come on, they can't really keep this up, right? First in the group, Inter third. I'm sorry, I don't see that. Possibly staying like this for a little bit.
Remember, Borussia Mönchengladbach finished second last year, and
that's
Inter and Shakhtar were 3 and 4.
That's a German squad, man.
Right, but I don't even think
battle-tested in the Bundesliga. You can't tell me that a team from Moldova. I'm not hating on Moldova.
Right,
I don't know what Moldova is. I don't even know how to spell Moldova. All right, but still, the only thing I know about Moldova is that they're in Europe because they're in the Champions League. That's it. Don't ask me what part.
Context clues, people. Context clues.
There you go.
Yeah, no, it is quite the Cinderella story, and I mean, as me, the chaotic neutral, looking at this group, I obviously want Sheriff to do well. I don't want to see Manny too upset, so I'll be okay if Real Madrid move on. But I know there are some other counterparts who do like Inter Milan inside the 5 Reasons Sports Network that won't be too happy with that. So that is a group to look out for. I had actually, when I was in Portland at the Inter Miami match on the way back from the airport, or on the way to the airport while I was leaving, I had an Uber driver from Moldova, and I don't remember how the conversation of him being from Moldova came up, but it did. And I asked him, like, hey, are you a football fan? Have you been seeing what's going on? And he said, yeah. I'm not really a football fan, but how could I not have heard the story of FC Sheriff? And this was coming off of their win against Real Madrid. So that was a pretty cool, neat thing that happened to me. But it's why I'm so invested too. I mean, it's quite the story. That win against Real Madrid was massive. Now they've got 2 wins in the group, and they'll play Inter Milan again, looking to bounce back and try and get 9 points from 4 games, which is something that nobody expected. Moving on to Group E. We're looking at a group that had the once giants and FC Barcelona sitting here in 3rd place. Bayern Munich, Benfica, and Dynamo Kiev are now in that group, and it's looking like Bayern are going to run away. Much like Ajax's 10 goal differential, Bayern Munich have a plus 12 goal differential, and they have not conceded in those 3 matches. That is a strong start, and they had not necessarily a rough first half yesterday against Benfica. They had a good XG number. They were getting shots on target, but they weren't finding the back of the net. But then they completely turned it around in the second half, starting off with a Leroy Sané free kick, and that just opened the floodgates. And they went on to a big victory there. And it's just, I mean, it's such a strong side. They're going to challenge for the title yet again. And I'm interested to see how far they go with a new coach, Nagelsmann, that is. And they'll play Benfica again on the other turn. But I want to get into this Barcelona thing. Finally got a win. It does come against the weakest side in the group in Dynamo Kiev, who have a -6 goal differential over 3 games. Only 1-0, nothing convincing. I believe Piqué scored somewhere in the later part of the first half. I think it was 36th minute or so. It wasn't really a convincing performance. And as a U.S. men's national team fan, I did see that Serginho Dest was playing up on the wing, not as a right back. And that was something that interested me, but he had a pretty good game. If you go back and watch that, Serginho Dest was one of the best and most consistent performers throughout the 90 minutes for Barcelona. And that's something that they might have, Koeman might do going forward. And it might translate to the national team given the right back depth. That's just a little U.S. men's national team tidbit there. But Barcelona have a lot of work to do if they're going to want to get past Benfica, because another Portuguese side who cannot be slept on, who has a lot of talent, who can rotate players, Benfica is there, and they're going to want to get to the knockouts, and that's having to play against Bayern and Barcelona themselves. They'll probably pick up another win against Kiev, so look for that matchup between Benfica and Barcelona. And can you imagine if Barcelona finished in 3rd place and get into Europa League? That would be quite the scene to behold. For a once European giant that has lost Messi, and I guess they're not there anymore.
Also, Austin, do not forget the Clásicos on Sunday, man. So Barcelona has no time to try to figure out things any longer. Doesn't get any easier after that, because obviously La Liga's back, or all the leagues are back, are in full force. Games on Wednesdays, games on the weekends.
Yep.
It's now back to normal, right? I mean, let's listen. Next year, I still don't know how the World Cup is going to work. I saw the dates. I don't
It's
agree
weird.
with it. Like all of a sudden, this has become, let's have football on Thursdays and Fridays and Sundays and Tuesdays. You're asking leagues to begin, to pause, and to begin again. I really don't know. So what happens if a player gets injured throughout that process? Now, does the club have to pay them? Does the international federation of that nation all of a sudden have to pay in fees? It's going to get quite hectic. But yeah, some teams like Barcelona have no way of trying to figure out things any longer, right? So they got to get things going.
And I'm looking at the La Liga table here, and Barcelona not sitting pretty in 7th place out of a European spot. Yes, they have a game in hand against a couple of teams above, but it's not looking good. And with El Clasico coming up on Sunday, as Manny just reminded us, that is a tough turnaround for any team. I mean, if you're going against your biggest rivals, like Manchester United are getting ready to do after facing off against Atalanta, I mean, it's one of the hardest things to do in sports, and it's this crazy packed schedule I mean, yes, Champions League was always Tuesdays and Wednesdays, but with the international breaks and the summer tournaments, these players are not getting as much rest as they used to. And you have to look at also the variables that the pandemic brought. It's an entire discussion to be had, and we might do on the 30-minute pitch one day. But it's absolutely insane. And like I said, Manchester United, Group F, faced off against Atalanta, went down 2-0 in the first half. Was shocking, a shocking performance from every player on the pitch, honestly. The only player I could say did half decent was maybe David De Gea, and he conceded twice. That's how bad it was for Man United in the first half. And in the second half, they had that amazing turnaround after a Rashford, Maguire, and Ronaldo header in the 90th minute to win the game. Not something that I expected when watching the game, not something I expected as a Man United fan, but now Ole is sitting pretty for now until Sunday, where they take on Liverpool. But Atalanta are sitting there in this group in second place, tied on points with Villarreal, who had a win against Young Boys, and Young Boys sitting in fourth after picking up a win against Manchester United in the first game, but 2 losses have followed that since then. So it's not looking pretty for Young Boys, but Man United, Atalanta, Villarreal. This is a group to watch. This is a group that can go either way. I have no idea where this is going to finish. I would hope, for my sake, that Manchester United get into one of those top 2 spots, but I cannot say I'm confident. Atalanta should not be slept on. Manchester United will face off Atalanta in Italy in the next round of matches, and that's something that might turn the table over on its head. You never really know when it comes to the Champions League. Moving on to Group G, some groups, are as strong as others. But when I'm looking at Salzburg, Sevilla, Lille, and Wolfsburg, I'm not saying that this is the strongest group, but I'm saying it's a pretty enticing group, especially with how things have turned out. Red Bull Salzburg doing a lot better than their German counterparts in RB Leipzig. Salzburg is sitting at top of the group with 7 points. Sevilla with 3 points after 3 draws. The French champions, Lille, only 2 points taken away from 3 games, and Wolfsburg only 2 points taken away from 3 games. Salzburg are sitting really pretty at the top of the table. They had a great win against Wolfsburg, and they'll be looking to do that again. And another U.S. men's national team tidbit, Brendan Aronson starting as the number 10 for them really worked out, and he helped provide a lot of chances. Didn't ever get an assist in this match, but after the couple goals they scored, it seemed like he was a key factor, and that's something Berhalter will have to think about. Moving on to Group H, Juve, Chelsea, Zenit, and Malmo. Now, obviously, you look at this group, you think, yeah, Juve and Chelsea are going to run away with it. But I didn't think they were going to run away with it the way they are doing it. I thought Chelsea would be at the top of this group, but Juve pulled out a late winner. Kuleveski got a 87th or 88th minute winner in their match against Zenit. They'll play Zenit again. Juve sitting with 3 wins in a row atop of Group H. Chelsea ended up getting a loss to Juve earlier on, and that was a shocking loss for me personally. I did not think that Juve were up to that standard, but maybe they are. Maybe they're coming back. You never really know. But it all matters when it gets to the knockouts, and if they both make it there, which they should, that's when things get the most interesting. So that's it for our Champions League roundup. We'll be doing it as much as possible throughout the weeks. with the 30-minute pitch here presented by Dangerous Minds. And speaking of Dangerous Minds, just a reminder, outstanding brewery located in Pompano Beach at the city center. Go get your beer, go get your pizza. One of my favorite appetizers is the just the crust. I love breadsticks. These are phenomenal breadsticks with their homemade dough, and their marinara sauce is awesome that you can dip them in. They've even got pretzels. They've got not just beer either. I'm pretty sure they have wine. You can get some craft sodas that they have. So make sure you go check out Dangerous Minds and watch maybe one of Inter Miami's next matches that are coming up. Inter Miami have actually put themselves somewhat back in the playoff race, and Dangerous Minds is a place to be for these next couple of matches if you can't make it out to Drive Pink Stadium. They take on FC Cincinnati on Saturday, but they're coming off a 3-0 win over Toronto FC at home. Now, I'm sure that Inter Miami fans are looking at this and saying, why can't we play Toronto FC every single week? Why can't we play Toronto FC at home every single week? The win last night was something to remember for Inter Miami, and it could be something to remember surely if they're able to turn this ship around and get 12 points from their next 4 games. This would be the start of something special if they somehow make the playoffs. Now I'm looking at the table here. The 3 points for Miami were huge. They were coming off the 4-0 loss to Columbus, and something about this team with 6-game losing streaks, with that 6th game being a blowout by 5 or 4 goals, and then coming in and turning it around at home. That's happened twice this year. So it's amazing to see how consistently inconsistent this team can be. But it was a huge win, and a lot of results fell in their favor last night in terms of the table in the Eastern Conference. You're looking at 41 points for DC United. Miami here at 11th with 35, a 6-point differential, and there's only 4 games left. Now, unfortunately, Miami does not play DC or Montreal or Atlanta or Red Bulls or Columbus again this season, but they do play New York City FC. And if they can get a win against New York City FC at home, which is something that they have struggled with in their short history against each other, then it seems like, there is hope there, and you just have to hope for a couple losses from Atlanta, Montreal, and DC, which happened last night. I believe Montreal tied with Orlando. Atlanta ended up beating NYCFC, who have completely fallen out of form. They look like a sure playoff contender, and now they're on the ropes, right? And I believe too that DC
correction, Austin. They look like playoff contenders when they play Inter Miami.
Well,
that's what you meant. That's right. What you meant to say.
Well, no, that is true. But they, in the beginning of the season, they were sitting first, second, third, fourth, and not first, with the Revs being this historic team that they are. And then DC United had a loss to the Revs, who I just spoke about. They lost 3-2. I believe DC United scored first, but then 3 goals from New England was too much to handle. But yeah, looking at the rest of these games to come, 3 of them at home for Miami. If I'm remembering correctly, it's going to be, or is it 2 at home? No, it's 2. Yeah. FC Cincinnati and New York City FC. Yeah. So there are a couple of games here that Inter Miami, I mean, you have to win them all. And unfortunately for them, their fate is not in their own hands. I believe that if they do get all 12 points, it obviously puts them in a better position to make the playoffs. But they have to travel to Atlanta, where they did not do good a couple weeks ago. They have to play New York City FC, which they have not done well in the history of their career. They have to play the best team MLS May has ever seen in New England Revolution away in Boston, or Foxborough, I should say. But it all starts with the game on Saturday against FC Cincinnati in a matchup that has been favorable for Inter Miami in the past, not in just 2021, but also in 2020. Miami have had Cincinnati's number since their inception. I mean, Cincinnati has never been a good team. Miami has always won, I believe. There might have been a draw, but I'm pretty sure Miami's always beaten FC Cincinnati. And it started with one of those matches where Mikey Ambrose last year scored that crazy goal off the top of the box that helped them solidify their playoff in 2020. And now, again, they need something like that at home in front of the fans to try and solidify their playoff hopes yet again. But the game against Atlanta, I'm worried about. The game against New York City FC, I'm worried about. The game against New England, I'm worried about. And it's been tough scheduling for Inter Miami after the Red Bulls had to. Well, they had that unfortunate rain delay / postponement. They had to reschedule the Red Bulls game, and it fit right into a road trip that was tough as it is, going against Portland and Atlanta and Columbus. But then New York Red Bulls is slotted right in between and said, you know what, here you go. Instead of getting a week off, you're gonna just make this one of the longest road trips in MLS history. I believe if you do the numbers in terms of total mileage, it was more miles traveled than a London-based club in the Premier League has to do in an entire season, which is insane. And I'm not making any excuses, but I think Phil Neville touched on it in the post-game press conference last night, saying that, going on the road in this country is really rough. And yes, they should have picked up results given the circumstances. The 1-0 loss to the Red Bulls was really tough. The 4-0 loss to Columbus was something that is inexcusable. But if I look at the 3 games before the Columbus game, which is that Red Bulls game, that was a tough loss where you had a Higuain goal that actually was onside, but the refs got that wrong, and so did VAR. You look at the Portland game where 2 penalty calls should have been called on Robbie Robinson, and Julian Carranza scored a header where he did not foul the opponent. Should have been called in their favor. At least could have gotten a draw from that game. And I'm looking at the Atlanta LGP penalty call. Wasn't a penalty. They went to VAR and still stood, and then Josef Martinez got his 100th goal for Atlanta United. So there were a couple of results that really just didn't go their way. And unfortunately for Inter Miami, that's just the way it is. It's not going to turn around, and they have to do what they have to do. The past is in the past. Phil Neville said that they're treating this almost like a mini tournament. Like, you have to win all these 5 games in order to solidify yourself at some point. The past is in the past. You can't change it. It is what it is. He had that whole thing with the league. Moving on, you cannot lose. You absolutely cannot lose. And they finally got a win in their last 7 matches against Toronto at home, which is something to build momentum off of. It is something that kind of was expected, but at the same time, not really expected. Phil Neville changed the formation. Phil Neville put out bench Robbie Robinson, bench Blaise Matuidi, benched, who am I missing? Rodolfo Pizarro. You saw Federico come in and make a huge impact there in the first half. Should have had 2 goals, but he was just slightly offside in the second minute. There was a lot of positive to take away from that match, but at the same time, relying on an old Federico Higuain is not going to do justice for 2022 and 2023. But that doesn't really matter right now. It's trying to get into the playoffs. And I'm hoping that Federico is fit enough to at least start the next couple of games. And sure, you can take him off at halftime. You can take him off in the 60th minute. But as a lot of people may notice, he plays a lot better alongside his brother, and his brother is better for it. Gonzalo plays a lot better when Federico is on his side or in behind him, whatever it is. This new 4-2-3-1, or not new, the old new, whatever you want to call it. He started off the year with a 4-2-3-1, switched to a 5 at the back, then switched back to a 4-2-3-1. Then for the last 2 months has been a 5 at the back. Phil Neville has been all over the place with this roster, but I think that with the depth that you don't have right now in terms of injuries and players being absent, you have to use players in their best natural positions. And I think that the 4-2-3-1, as Neville even spoke about too in the post-game press conference, it does that. It allows Kelvin Leardom to be an out-and-out right back. It allows Lewis Morgan to play up top as a winger. It allows Vasilev and Morgan to be on opposite wings, which is a deadly threat if they can build chemistry and with the midfield players. You saw Gregory and Chapman in the double pivot. Unfortunately, I think Chapman went down with an injury. He might be out for Saturday. It's looking like Miami are going to have to use another hardship rule. But I think that the 4-2-3-1 is something that they're going to try and use for the rest of the season if they have the players available. And I don't think that they might not. It looks like Figal is going to be out. LGP is potentially suspended, but by my numbers, he's not. Phil Neville said he is. I'm interested to see how Phil Neville gets this situation out under his hands and tries to make the playoffs. Now I'm going to touch on Adrian here before we head out. With slim chances for the playoffs, let's just skip the offseason and make predictions on who will be the new TPs next season. James spent a lot of time in Miami this year. Look, I don't think James is coming. I really don't. I know he just made the move, but He just made a move out to some like I think it was a Middle Eastern club. I can't really remember, but I don't believe Hamas is coming. But at the same time, to answer your question about the DPs, I think you will see a switch in DPs. I think you will see the club trying to rid themselves of Rodolfo Pizarro. If they can get some money back for him, maybe send him back to Liga MX. As for Blaise Matuidi, that is the person that I'm most worried about them getting rid of. I think that he offers the less of the three. I think that he's been sometimes shambles in the midfield, and his performances have been declining since day one. And I'm looking at Gonzalo Higuain too. And if you've ever seen a player on the brink of retirement, it's Gonzalo Higuain. I think that that's how they might get rid of Gonzalo Higuain's contract. So potentially 2, maybe even 3 DP spots open. They might not fill them all right away, or they might go with the younger approach in U22s to bring in some younger guys from maybe a South American league. I remember a couple of years ago, Roger Martinez could have been one of those guys. Agustin Almendra could have been one of those guys. Both one playing for Boca, and then you look at the Mexican League with Roger Martinez playing for America. There are a couple of names all over the place that I'm sure Miami are looking at, but you still have to offload your DPs now in order to try and fix something and get players in for next year. And that's the biggest problem Chris Henderson is going to have. I can't wait to get to the offseason. Honestly, I am a little over this season in terms of an Inter Miami analyst, reporter, fan, whatever you want to call it. But they still have hope to make the playoffs, and that's what they should focus on. But I know that there's a lot more to focus on in the offseason. It'll be the biggest offseason in the club's history, more important than the first one that Paul McDonough had. And they're looking to make big changes, especially with the sanctions coming up. With all that said, let's hope Inter Miami can make the playoffs so we can keep talking about them on the 30-minute pitch. And as for the 30-minute pitch, I am Austin Robillard. This is brought to you by Dangerous Minds Brewing Company, an outstanding brewery in Pompano Beach at the City Center. If you've never been, go ahead and check it out. Live music on Wednesdays and Fridays and Saturdays. They're always playing any of the biggest sporting events you can ask for. Soccer especially. I know you're listening to a soccer show. And great beer, great pizza, and a ton more. It's just an awesome place. So make sure you go check it out. We thank them so much for making the 30-minute pitch possible. It would be awesome if you guys can go out and support Dangerous Minds Brewing. Manny, thank you so much on the other end. Austin, or as for myself, we appreciate you listening in. Adrian, you're also one of those listening in. Thank you so much for tuning in. And we will see you guys on the 30-minute pitch next week on the 5 Reasons Sports Network YouTube channel. Thank you so very much. Have a good one.